Fantastic. I'd like to now invite Rob Shorter from DEALS, that's the Doughnut Economics Action Lab, to come forward and share some, well, yeah, I'm really excited to hear this. I think you're going to share some thoughts, and also you have some slides as well, I believe. So good morning, Rob. Thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, and great to be here and share these ideas with you. So a green and just future for all really is what we're trying to do with Doughnut Economics. And I've got to show the visual because it's all about the picture of the donut. So I'm going to start there because with Doughnut Economics Action Lab, we are offering the donut, this two-ring donut with a hole in the middle, as a possible goal for the economy or a compass for human prosperity. The goal of the donut is to meet the needs of all within the means of the living planet. So the needs of all is the social foundation and all of the things it means to the essentials to live a good life. And these are crowdsourced from the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So all the countries' governments agree to these. So everyone has a claim to these. These are sort of the global aspiration goals, but we can localize it and make it relevant to our places, our communities. So what does it mean for us in our place to live a good life? So we want to meet the needs of all, but at the same time, we have to recognize we're living on a delicately balanced living planet. So we don't want to overshoot what that living planet can hold. And so the 9 planetary boundaries from Earth system science have defined the safe operating space for humanity and for the economies that we create that need to be regenerative and distributive in order to get into this sort of lovely doughy space in the middle of the donut. But if this is our goal, we are far from it at the moment, with billions of people falling short in the hole in the middle on the essentials of life, and that's what that red is. It's not jam, it's sort of shortfall on the essentials of life. And at the same time, we're collectively overshooting on now 5 of the planetary boundaries with chemical pollution also recently being identified. So we need to recognize that we have economies that are divisive and degenerative, that are leaving people falling short on the essentials of life and pushing us over planetary boundaries. We need to reimagine these so that they bring us back into balance, into the space of the donut. And so we at Doughnut Economics Action Lab are inviting people to explore what that means for communities, for business design, for policy making. And it's a really playful space with the donut being an unintimidating idea, because people are scared of economics, but no one's scared of donuts. And so if you start with the donut, you then begin to say, what does that mean? What does it mean to get into this space? And so what we say is, to get into the donut, we need to do 2 things. Fundamentally, we need to be regenerative by design, working with and within the cycles of the living world. Nature doesn't have waste. We mustn't throw things away. We mustn't overuse what the planet can offer. We need to design like the genius of nature. So we lean on the ever-growing study of biomimicry, for example, and using nature's lead as our mentor and also our measure of success. But we also need to be distributive by design. And this is recognizing that we can distribute these sources of wealth creation far more equitably amongst all who co-create in society. And that's what I want to talk about just a little bit more, because I recognize that the subject of today's conversation is around for richer, for poorer. Can rethinking wealth and using community wealth building approaches help us address the causes of poverty? And so recognizing distributive design is about asking who owns the sources of wealth creation. We need to ask the questions, what can help us get there? We recognize that the number of billionaires has doubled in the last decade, from 1,000 to 2,000. And this is a pattern that's reflected both across nations, but also within nations. So whilst there's a rise of the 1% who are vastly overshooting their share of what we can consume, over-consuming, millions of people are still falling short in the essentials of life. So we need to create economies that have the essentials of life structured into the dynamics where there's value and opportunity are shared far more equitably. So the key questions we need to ask are: who owns the land? Who determines how the land is used? Who determines how the value generated from that land is distributed? Who owns the housing? Is it private ownership? Is it let out by landlords? Is it social housing, community land trusts, housing cooperatives? When rents rise, who is reaping the value and who is paying the cost? Also, who owns the businesses? Is your place full of multinational corporations who might extract the value and take it as profit to who knows where? Or is your high street home to locally owned enterprises owned by families, cooperatives? That's my time. Employee-owned organizations that reinvest or distribute value locally so that the value is retained in your place. And who has access to the licenses and access to local production as well. Also, quality public transport and civic spaces are things we can think about. The rich civic spaces where we can all connect both indoors and outdoors, but also recognizing that not all wealth is measured in GDP. What about the care economy, where value is, and wealth is created both in the household and when we connect in community organizations and volunteering? And how can we design economies around social connection that really enable us to meet our needs? So those are just a few kind of starting questions that can lead us into maybe some of the structural questions around our economy. They're questions that no one can answer in isolation, and we need everyone's perspective to be able to reimagine what's possible, and just to recognize we need a huge diversity of perspectives. And I just want to acknowledge that I'm on a panel of 4 white men, and I really look forward to hearing the diversity of everyone who's joined and all of the organizations which you represent.